Once again, the desperation to win an election is getting in the way of basic moral responsibility. So, having faced a defeat yesterday at the ballot box, at the dispatch box, sorry, Rishi Sunak and his ministers are now drawing up plans to avoid paying out compensation to the victims of the blood scandal, which goes back to the 1970s. It is simply abhorrent. This is the responsibility of a civilized government to compensate the victims and their families for the stupidity of the government at the time and for many years after, because people knew. And the stupidity of the bureaucrats who were even then beginning to take over the running of the NHS. And I keep talking about the stupidity of bureaucrats. I came across this directly on two occasions, on the two occasions when I was in hospital, different hospitals, and my life was put in danger on both occasions because of the stupidity of bureaucracy. Now, I received a wonderful, wonderful treatment from the consultants, the surgeons, the nurses, but the bureaucrats, the basic paperwork, was a mess. And that paperwork involved one hospital talking to another, because, of course, the hospital system is rather arrogant and doesn't accept the word of the patient, and clearly doesn't have notes. And so in both cases, in the first case, there was a long pause while they did their own investigation and my appendix burst. So when I had my operation, they were dealing with peritonitis. And what should have been a simple, straightforward operation turned into a life-threatening process. And of course, once I came round, I didn't understand why I was in so much pain. And it wasn't until I had another abdominal operation to remove cancer 10 years later, 11 years later, of course, after the time when I could make a formal complaint, that I discovered the extent of the mess left behind because of the error made in the first hospital. And the second hospital, I spoke to the hematology department, who promised that they would talk to the haemophilia department that managed my blood issues, and they didn't. And they didn't. And then they grabbed drugs off the shelf and thought that would be a sufficient fix. And it wasn't. And I promptly hemorrhaged after the event, and I was back in hospital for over 2 weeks, sorting out the mess that was created by bureaucracy, by their stupidity. Now, there's a lot of stupidity running around the place, and most of it is about arrogance and is about control. And we see it in government, the stupidity of cleverly, the stupidity, I think that's rather a good line, really, cleverly's stupidity, the stupidity of Rishi Sunak, but this group stupidity of minister after minister, of bureaucrat after bureaucrat, failing to sort out the blood problem, the infected blood problem, and the way that has gone on. So people were infected, they didn't know they were infected, they infected their partners and so on. And a huge swathe of families across the UK have been unnecessarily injured, or in some cases killed, because of stupidity. And yet this particular government puts the election before trying to repair some of the damage that it and other governments have done. So the defeat of the Conservative government on Monday, an extraordinary issue where people in the Conservative Party who were under whip to vote with the government voted against it. Significant figures, including the lady with the single finger salute, Andrea Jenkins, who I have no great affection for. Well done to her. And this compensation package would be between 10 billion and 20 billion pounds, and Jeremy Hunt is not prepared to sign off that compensation package until his pre-election budget in February or early March, because he doesn't want it to get in the way of the election handouts, the bribes that cannot now win a comfortable Conservative election. It is just possible because of the sheer size of the sheer number of Conservative seats that need to be overturned for a genuine Labour government to take control. It is just possible that a Conservative government could squeeze back in, but it won't be a Conservative government with any significant majority. It'll be a Conservative government limping into office and probably limping out of office within a year or two. That is the best that Rishi Sunak can hope for. That is the best that Jeremy Hunt's bribe can achieve. And yet, to fail to hand people back their money, because that's what it amounts to, keeping money so that Jeremy Hunt can use it to bribe others to vote for him and his cronies, this seems utterly irresponsible and immoral. Added to which, the other compensation for the post office, for the Windrush, all late. All late. It's as if somebody who has been badly injured, badly hurt by our government, whatever colour, has to go on their hands and knees and crawl to the government and say, please give me what you promise. This isn't compensation. This is tossing off a beggar. And it is wrong. Utterly, utterly wrong. This is throwing money on the street at somebody who is begging. And there are stories about that having happened, of course, as you know. Contaminated blood, which left tens of thousands of people, many suffering from haemophilia. That's often called a rare blood disorder. It may be rare, but I know a lot of people who suffer from it. I move in that community. People who were then, because of stupidity, infected with HIV, with hepatitis C, and so on. In my own case, I was incredibly lucky. But it was pure chance, not design, which meant that I escaped. Now, Sir Brian Langstaff said not so long ago that he thought compensation should be paid sooner rather than later. And Jeremy Hunt has found a weasel-like way to avoid doing so. Thank you, Diana Johnson, the Labour MP who forced the vote on this matter. Thank you. Thank you to her. But as of now, 3/4 of the people who were infected with HIV because of the stupidity of bureaucracy have died. 26,000 people are seriously ill. Between 2,000 and 5,000 people have been infected with hepatitis C. Longstaff's report still has to be fully published, but his findings are clear. And yet, the current and the new health secretary is arrogant enough to say, she will wait for the report. But that's not the issue. That's not what she's waiting for. She's waiting for the election, and she doesn't want to get in the way of the handout that Jeremy Hunt, and I had to think very carefully before I said that second name, is promising to use to bribe the electorate. The electorate will not be deceived by this deceit.